Listen carefully. Everything you've been told about getting rich has been engineered to make you visible. Build a brand. Showcase your wins. Display the car, the watch, the upgraded lifestyle. Let the world see you rising. They call it positioning. They call it confidence. They call it influence. But strip the paint off that advice and you'll see what it really is. Performance. A stage for men who crave applause more than power. The brutal truth is this. Most men don't stay broke because they lack intelligence or drive. They stay broke because they broadcast too much. You announce your plans before they're built. You reveal your moves before they're secure. You expose your hunger to people who are quietly measuring how to use it. Then you act shocked when progress slows, when favors are requested, when subtle resistance appears from those who smile in your face. Wake up. Not everyone clapping for you wants you ahead of them. Niccolò Machiavelli never preached fake virtue. He observed reality without emotion. And reality is simple. Every man protects his own interests first. The moment others sense you climbing, their goodwill mutates into quiet expectation. If he's rising, he can help me. If he's winning, he owes me. If he's building, I deserve a piece. You think you're stepping into the spotlight as a leading man. In truth, you're walking into a field without armor. Real wealth does not grow in noise. It grows in controlled silence. It is protected by discipline, by restricted access, by the ability to decide who sees what and when. In competitive sports, the most dangerous move is misdirection. The player who survives is not the loudest one on the field, but the one who keeps the decisive play concealed until the final second. If you are tired of feeling momentum build only to be interrupted, stop presenting your life like a public exhibition. Stop feeding the audience. Over the next minutes, you will be given 8 rules that operate like iron bars around a fortress. If you have the patience to absorb them, you will understand how to let money compound without turning yourself into a walking target. First, understand this. Wealth is not a moral reward. It is positioning. Power is not about being good or bad. It is about structure. Niccolò Machiavelli did not instruct men to become villains. He warned them not to become naive. He recognized envy as a constant force in human nature. That is why security does not come from being admired. It comes from being difficult to reach and impossible to predict. In modern society, it is rarely the man who works the longest hours who becomes untouchable. It is the man who protects what he builds. The fatal error many men make is believing transparency earns respect. They think if they show their grind, their purchases, their connections, the world will salute them. The opposite happens. The more you display, the more entry points you create. Every detail revealed is a doorway. Every doorway invites intrusion. If you want wealth that lasts, learn to reduce your surface area. Become harder to read. The less exposed you are, the fewer arrows find you. The man who controls access to himself controls his schedule, his capital, and his strategic advantage. Ask yourself honestly. How much of your life is public performance? Every time you post a small win, every time you hint at a new deal, every time you showcase progress to prove you are advancing, you believe you are signaling status. In reality, you are placing a marker on your own back. Money has gravity. It pulls attention. But attention is not loyalty. Attention attracts 3 categories of danger. The first are the dependents, who approach you under the language of family and brotherhood while calculating what they can extract. The second are the observers, waiting for a mistake so they can feel relief that you stumbled. The third are the opportunists, who disguise themselves as connectors while quietly draining your leverage. And the most dangerous of them all is often the one closest to you, the one who knows your desires, your weaknesses, your ambitions. Envy is not loud. It corrodes slowly. When you flaunt advancement, you ignite comparison. Comparison breeds resentment. Resentment does not attack directly. It delays you, distracts you, whispers doubt, offers bad counsel wrapped in concern. Study history. The Medici family in Renaissance Florence accumulated immense influence not by shouting their wealth from rooftops, but by operating through controlled presence. Cosimo de' Medici possessed the resources to dominate openly, yet he maintained the appearance of moderation. He understood that visibility invites coalitions against you. Obscurity allows consolidation. He chose to move like a shadow that shapes events rather than a flame that attracts every eye. The lesson for you is severe but simple. Discipline your ego. Kill the craving for validation. Do not become a digital performer flashing symbols of wealth for temporary approval. Study the character of Gus Fring, a man who appeared ordinary while commanding an empire beneath the surface. The figure under bright lights is analyzed and tracked. The figure operating behind curtains holds real leverage. The warning is clear. If you want to preserve what you earn, stop inviting spectators into your strategy. Curiosity from others is rarely innocent. Information about you is leverage against you. Here is the challenge. For the next 30 days, remove yourself from unnecessary exposure. No announcements. No explanations when underestimated. Let silence replace self-promotion. Let others speculate. Discomfort will arise because your ego feeds on acknowledgement. That discomfort is the beginning of strength. The moment you exchange attention for autonomy is the moment you step out of the herd. Decide now. Either remain visible and vulnerable, or begin constructing a life that operates beyond the reach of casual hands. Choose invisibility. Then act accordingly. Second act. Men without assets obsess over appearances. Men with assets invest in uncertainty. Picture two containers sitting in the center of a crowded plaza. One is transparent, polished, stuffed with bright coins that sparkle under the sun. Every passerby can count the wealth inside with a single glance and feels the itch to break it open. The other container is heavy, dark steel, scratched, sealed, giving nothing away. No one can tell if it hides diamonds or dust. If someone plans to steal, he doesn't hesitate. He goes for what he can measure. This is not a poetic image. It's a diagnosis of how most men sabotage themselves. You keep choosing to live like the transparent container, putting your ambitions on display so strangers can clap, criticize, or calculate their move against you. Ask yourself why you constantly broadcast your next deal, your next partnership, your 5-year vision as if it's already accomplished. You narrate the future to feel powerful in the present. But the more you narrate, the more you expose the gaps. In strategic psychology, every unnecessary sentence is intelligence handed to potential rivals. You reveal what excites you, what threatens you, where you're insecure. Anyone observant can map your pressure points. And once a man's pressure points are visible, he can be steered. Real influence operates differently. A grounded man doesn't rush to clarify himself. The need to explain is often a disguised request for reassurance. The moment you seek reassurance, you lower your status to the courtroom of public opinion. Niccolò Machiavelli wrote in The Prince that wisdom includes withholding your full design. If others can read your blueprint, they can interrupt the construction. Look at modern corporate life in America. The loudest strategist in the meeting, the one preaching vision and culture every hour, is frequently the first name on the layoff list when the market shifts. Meanwhile, the quiet operator, the man who speaks little and executes daily, becomes indispensable. He doesn't demand understanding. He cultivates unpredictability. From this moment forward, reduce the announcements. Let results arrive without warning. Don't be the man wearing oversized brand logos while his savings account whispers the truth. External signals without internal substance are bait for predators. Become the silent variable in the equation. When competitors cannot define your position, they cannot design a precise attack. Silence is not weakness, it is emotional sovereignty. Allow outcomes to speak, and when they do, let them land like thunder that forces doubters into stunned quiet. In every conversation, catch yourself before you brag or prematurely unveil a plan. Swallow it. Let curiosity work for you while you build in private. Decide now. Are you brittle transparency or reinforced steel? Type, "I am an unknown," and mean it. Refuse to let the world assign you value based on what is easily seen. Make them uneasy about the strength they cannot access. Act, or remain exposed. Third principle. The moment you become constantly reachable, you create channels for your own depletion. Society praises endless availability. We're told that the admirable man is always responsive, always agreeable, always ready to jump on a call. But examine the cost. You answer every notification within minutes. You accept every invitation. You volunteer before anyone else raises a hand. Your calendar is crammed. Your phone vibrates like it controls you. Yet your financial graph is flat. Activity has replaced progress. In the eyes of others, you become a complementary service. Here is the uncomfortable reality. Extreme wealth and influence require concentrated attention. But you fragment your attention to maintain likability. In behavioral science, the scarcity principle explains that people assign higher value to what is limited. When your time is unlimited, your value collapses. They ignore your boundaries because you haven't established any. This is not kindness. It is approval-seeking disguised as virtue. Within Machiavellian thought, excessive accommodation erodes authority. It is not about cruelty, it is about controlled access. Build layers around your schedule. Decide who earns direct contact, who receives delayed responses, and who receives none at all. Do not transform yourself into a public bench where anyone can unload their problems. Learn to decline without drafting a long defense. Lengthy justifications signal insecurity. Consider how Louis XIV structured his reign. Access to Louis XIV was ritualized, rare, and coveted. The court at Palace of Versailles revolved around proximity to him. That controlled visibility amplified his authority. When presence is scarce, every word carries weight. When you are everywhere, you are ordinary. Ask yourself whether you want to remain the agreeable man buried in other people's errands or the architect of your own domain. Starting today, redraw the perimeter. Silence non-essential notifications. Dedicate for uninterrupted hours to deep work. Respond selectively to what compounds your future. Silence is not neglect, it is strategy. Say it. My time is priceless. Reclaim it. Fourth truth. Envy rarely confronts you directly. It pressures you to shrink yourself. Once you accept that broadcasting invites attack and overavailability drains power, you must confront a deeper obstacle. The true enemy of prosperity is often the resentment of those watching you rise. Many driven men did not fail due to incompetence. They slowed down to avoid making others uncomfortable. Reflect honestly. Have you softened your ambition to avoid being labeled obsessed or greedy? Have you minimized your wins at social gatherings so you won't trigger jokes or whispers? You convince yourself that staying small preserves harmony. In reality, that harmony is stagnation wearing the mask of humility. You attempt to blend into the herd while your instincts demand elevation. In nature, when a dominant bird of prey enters the sky, smaller birds rarely attack it alone. They swarm together, shrieking, darting in quick strikes, not to destroy immediately but to exhaust and distract. The predator loses focus, wastes energy, and eventually retreats. If you allow the noise of the crowd to dictate your altitude, you will descend voluntarily. The crowd resists your expansion because your growth exposes their comfort. Social researchers describe this as tall poppy syndrome, the impulse to cut down whoever grows beyond the average height. Understand the psychology. Your acceleration forces others to evaluate their inertia. That discomfort converts into criticism disguised as concern. If you internalize their discomfort, you will unconsciously sabotage your pace. The disciplined man recognizes envy as confirmation, not condemnation. He does not argue with it. He outpaces it. Keep climbing without announcement, without apology, without seeking consensus. Let them talk while you compound skills, capital, and leverage. Your task is not to soothe the insecurities of the room. Your task is to build a life so solid that opinions become background noise. Stay unseen while you scale. Move in silence while you strengthen. And when your success becomes undeniable, it will not be because you ask permission. It will be because you refuse to shrink. Machiavelli warned that a man must never bargain his hunger for greatness in exchange for someone else's comfort. The moment you start trimming your ambition so others feel safe, you step out of the driver's seat and become a background extra in your own story. If you try to be agreeable to everyone, you will slowly dissolve into mediocrity. There is another route. Withdraw your blueprints from public view. Grind with obsessive focus where no applause can reach you. Let the outcome surface only when it is too solid to be shaken. Do not reduce yourself to a pitiful figure like Jerry Smith from Rick and Morty, a man desperate for validation from people who secretly mock him. Decide instead to exist beyond the courtroom of opinions. Remove yourself from the frequency of gossip. Silence can be a weapon sharper than insults. When you stop reacting, those waiting for your failure are left arguing with their own reflections. Here is the pact. From this day forward, end all casual talk about your targets with men who have not earned a seat at your level. Let them assume you quit. Let them believe you settled. While they exchange jokes at your expense, you refine skills, stack capital, and reinforce discipline. When you reappear, you won't be competing for their approval, you will stand in a different league altogether. Say it clearly. I do not negotiate my ambition. The sky does not make room for predators afraid of height. Move now, or drift into a life so average that no one even remembers your attempt. Fifth principle. When people admire you mainly for your generosity, they are often celebrating their access to your resources. History shows that rulers who scattered coins and favors without calculation quickly trained their subjects to expect more. Once the flow slowed, praise turned into resentment. Power was never about endless giving, it was about controlled distribution. Look at your own habits. You pay the bill again. You lend money again. You answer every request for free guidance. You believe this builds loyalty. In truth, you may be constructing dependency without respect. The day you close your wallet, watch how quickly the temperature shifts. During your own storm, scan your contacts. Notice who disappears. Many are attached not to your character but to the comfort you provide. Social psychologists call this entitlement, the belief that one deserves benefits earned by someone else. If you constantly overextend, you teach others that your effort is communal property. Niccolò Machiavelli observed that genuine loyalty is scarce, while opportunists multiply wherever advantage is available. If you continue down the path of compulsive niceness, you risk ending up drained and resentful, a forgotten side character. Do not become a living version of Ned Flanders from The Simpsons, endlessly pleasant yet perpetually exploited. Choose strategic generosity instead. Offer support with terms, limits, and intention. Assistance should strengthen your position, not weaken it. Practice declining requests without apology. When access to your resources requires merit, your perceived value rises. Strong men do not purchase liabilities, they command respect. Conduct a personal audit. Stop funding habits, nights out, and projects that return nothing but temporary praise. Step back and observe who remains loyal when your spending becomes invisible. It is a difficult awakening, but filtering opportunists is part of maturity. Declare it. My loyalty has value. Protect your assets or prepare to be consumed. Sixth principle. Visible business is theater. True wealth creation happens behind closed doors. Think about the men who constantly broadcast how packed their calendars are, who post every meeting and every handshake online. They complain about exhaustion yet rarely show tangible results. The loud display of effort often hides the absence of achievement. Activity becomes a costume worn to convince both the world and themselves that progress exists. Psychologists describe the Hawthorne effect, where individuals intensify effort simply because they are observed. In business, this can distort priorities. You start performing productivity instead of engineering profit. You run hard like a man on a treadmill, sweating and breathing heavy, but your financial coordinates remain fixed. In Machiavellian thinking, excessive display signals insecurity. A formidable operator requires no audience for his discipline. He focuses on output that silences critics without a speech. To escape the cycle, shift from surface motion to subterranean construction. While others distribute business cards at shallow events, retreat to design systems that function without applause. Build products, investments, and processes that generate revenue even when you are offline. Do not be the craftsman shouting about sparks flying from his forge. Be the architect of a mechanism that produces quietly day and night. Across America, many individuals with real seven-figure portfolios are practically invisible to the public eye. They sit behind layered companies and diversified assets, while louder personalities chase followers on social platforms. Wealth resembles a massive iceberg. The visible tip glitters briefly under sunlight and attracts cameras. Beneath the surface lies the heavy structure, dense and silent, carrying the true mass. That unseen bulk determines whether passing ships remain safe or sink. Your choice is simple. Chase attention like melting frost that disappears by noon, or cultivate depth like the submerged mountain of ice that moves oceans without announcing itself. Decide which form you will take. Machiavelli understood that authority does not come from being constantly seen, it comes from actions that land with precision. Presence without impact is noise. Impact without noise is dominance. It is time to execute the shallow, always active version of yourself and rebuild in isolation. For the next 14 days, eliminate every meeting, event, and social ritual that does not directly increase revenue or sharpen a skill tied to revenue. Step off the stage. Let invitations expire unanswered. Let people notice your absence and speculate. While they speculate, you construct systems that do not require applause to function. Make the decision and state it internally. I choose to be the submerged part. Do not advertise effort. Engineer outcomes so undeniable that explanation becomes unnecessary. Principle 7. Never allow the crowd to assign your value based on surface details. American industrial history once witnessed the calculated restraint of John D. Rockefeller. Early in his rise, he dressed plainly and spent conservatively, even when his accounts were already immense. Across negotiation tables, rivals misread the worn fabric and modest demeanor as weakness. They believed he lacked leverage. That miscalculation cost them everything. While they focused on appearances, he controlled capital flows they could not imagine. He did not announce power through ornament. He concealed strength behind simplicity. Now examine your own behavior. You refine your image obsessively. You stretch your budget to wear status. You craft posts designed to sparkle. You believe presentation earns respect. But the moment you broadcast signals of wealth or influence, you invite scrutiny. Expectations form. Comparisons begin. Tests are designed. You become a product displayed in a marketplace of opinions. In psychological terms, once you let others determine your worth through visuals, you surrender emotional control. Praise pressures you to maintain illusion. Doubt pressures you to overspend to prove something. You end up performing prosperity instead of compounding it. Machiavelli warned that revealing the full extent of your capability gives opponents a blueprint to counter you. If you expose every resource, you eliminate surprise. While you display your cards face up, others keep theirs hidden. The correction requires disciplined withdrawal. Lower the volume of signals. Raise the level of assets. Speak less about projected success and focus on tangible ownership. In American real estate and private equity circles, many men controlling vast portfolios look indistinguishable from ordinary citizens in a cafe. No entourage. No symbols. Their protection is anonymity. Real value does not demand decoration, it demands insulation. Imagine the dual identity of Bruce Wayne before he fully emerged as Batman. The public saw a careless heir. Behind closed doors, discipline and strategy were forged in darkness. The power was not in the costume but in the contrast between perception and reality. When you allow yourself to be underestimated, you gain strategic initiative. An underestimated man moves without resistance. Starting now, stop using visible luxury to purchase approval. Liquidate items bought purely for display and redirect that capital into income-producing structures built quietly. Allow neighbors to assume decline. Allow acquaintances to believe you peaked early. Your ego will protest, but ego is expensive. Freedom is priceless. Machiavelli taught that wisdom includes the ability to appear ordinary, even foolish, when it serves long-term advantage. Transformation begins when external pricing no longer influences internal strategy. Let your balance sheets remain confidential. Let your moves remain unpredictable. Say to yourself, I am of real value. Stop polishing the shell. Reinforce the core so thoroughly that no external force can fracture it. Principle 8. Invisibility does not mean erasing yourself. It means shielding the center from intrusion. You say you want extraordinary wealth. You say you want influence strong enough to shift markets with a decision. Yet your daily behavior contradicts that vision. You chase quick validation. You display early victories before they mature. You waste energy debating strangers online to defend your intelligence. You equate volume with strength. The truth is uncomfortable. The craving to be noticed makes you vulnerable. The more you expose your emotional triggers, the easier it is for others to manipulate you. Those who truly command industries rarely broadcast their intentions. While you outline your entire strategy publicly, disciplined operators execute in silence. They do not silence critics with arguments. They silence them with finished results. Invisibility is not retreating to darkness out of fear. It is mastering the timing of exposure. It is deciding what information leaves your control and what remains sealed. It is selecting who gains proximity to your inner circle and who remains outside the gate. The individual who constantly reveals his position forfeits initiative. The individual who protects his core retains leverage. Control the rhythm of your appearances. Control the narrative by limiting data. Control access with deliberate boundaries. When the world cannot fully read you, it cannot fully predict you. And when you cannot be predicted, you cannot be easily defeated. Study the play-action pass in American football and you will understand tactical invisibility in motion. At the snap, the quarterback extends the ball toward the running back with dramatic clarity. Every defender reacts to what looks obvious. Massive men charge forward, convinced they see the truth. They collide with a target that never actually possessed the prize. Meanwhile, the quarterback has already tucked the ball tight against his body, stepped back, and created space. He never left the field. He never hid in the locker room. He remained in plain sight. But the decisive element was concealed just long enough to shift the outcome. By the time the defense realizes the deception, the ball is already cutting through the air toward the end zone. That is not retreat. That is controlled misdirection. That is the discipline of protecting the core until the exact second of release. You need to master this in your own life. Wealth and authority require a sealed center. Your real numbers, your upcoming investments, the alliances forming quietly in the background, and especially your vulnerabilities must stay guarded. Do not trade strategic information for cheap applause. Every time you broadcast a move too early, you invite interference. Become unreadable in a calculated way, similar to Jay Gatsby from The Great Gatsby, but without illusion, with the precision of a hardened Wall Street operator. The less others can decode you, the more flexibility you maintain. Niccolò Machiavelli observed that most people judge by appearance while only a few ever grasp reality. If they cannot access reality, they cannot manipulate it. Real dominance begins when you divide yourself into two layers. A visible surface that interacts with the world and a protected interior that serves your ambition. Stop debating average minds. Let them chase narratives you intentionally allow them to see. Ask yourself a direct question. Do you have the discipline to keep the ball hidden until the final drive? If you are ready to abandon performance and step into controlled power, say it internally. I hide the core I control. Make this commitment personal. From this day forward, invisibility becomes armor. You have been taught that getting rich is a sprint, a loud race filled with announcements and celebration. But in reality, it is closer to a strategic war. And in war, the strongest defender is the one whose resources, direction, and capacity remain unknown. Reverse the habits that keep you exposed. You can continue living like a public notice board, updating everyone on your progress for validation, or you can operate like a fortress. Limited entry points. Minimal signals. Quiet expansion inside thick walls. The dividing line between men who perform success and men who possess it is control over visibility. Think back to your financial mistakes. How many were tied to speaking too soon, celebrating too early, trusting the wrong ears? Exposure often precedes loss. Reflect on that privately. Then answer the harder question. Do you truly desire wealth, or do you simply crave the appearance of it? Building an unbreakable inner core is not glamorous. It requires swallowing pride, ignoring attention, and choosing patience over applause. If you are willing to sacrifice shallow recognition to gain strategic advantage, commit to that path fully. Surround yourself with men who value results over noise, discipline over drama. The doors to real power do not open in crowded rooms. They open behind silence, behind guarded plans, behind a man who understands that what wins the game is not what is shown first, but what is protected until the final decisive move.